Have you ever woken up on a Monday, or any day really, and felt as though your life was being lived by someone else? You go through the motions, getting dressed, checking emails, working, replying to messages, and yet, deep inside, there's a quiet ache, a question that returns like an echo in an empty room. What am I doing here? It's a strange pain, not sharp like grief or fear, but dull, persistent, the kind of emptiness that doesn't scream, it whispers, and somehow that whisper hurts more, because it's easy to ignore, easy to silence with noise, distractions, or just more tasks. But it never goes away. Many of us live suspended in this strange state, functional, yet detached, present, yet absent. We fulfill responsibilities, meet deadlines, even smile at people. And still, there's a haunting sense that life is slipping through our fingers, like sand we can't hold on to. This is not laziness, nor lack of gratitude. It's something deeper. A quiet confrontation with the realization that we are not fully in our lives. We're watching from a distance, like spectators of our own story. Philosophically, this detachment is a crisis of interiority. When the inner life dries up, routine takes over, and routine without meaning becomes a form of slow erosion. As Viktor Frankl once said, life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. The problem isn't your job or your schedule. It's the absence of a why. Psychologically, this sense of living on autopilot is linked to a defense mechanism. We avoid feeling deeply because feeling deeply might lead us to uncomfortable truths about our relationships, our choices, our fears. So we anesthetize, not with substances but with habits. The first step to healing isn't to quit your job or move to a cabin in the woods. It's to notice, to acknowledge the void, to dare ask the hard question, is this the life I want to be awake in? Before we can reclaim our path, we must admit we've been lost. That takes courage, but it also opens the door to something profoundly liberating, the chance to live deliberately. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you felt truly alive? If this reflection resonated with you, share it in the comments. Like the video and subscribe for more conversations like this. Honest, deep, and human. We often imagine that a life without turbulence is a good life. If the bills are paid, relationships are peaceful, and the fridge is full, then everything must be okay, right? But here lies a subtle and dangerous illusion, the belief that comfort is the same as fulfillment. The truth is, you can have everything under control and still feel completely adrift. You can live decades in the same job in the same city, surrounded by familiar people, and yet feel like a stranger to yourself. Because what so many of us mistake for peace is merely the absence of noise, not the presence of meaning. This confusion is understandable. We are taught from childhood to seek stability. Stability brings security, and security brings freedom, or so we're told. But stability without purpose is like a beautifully decorated prison. Quiet, yes. Safe, perhaps, but also lifeless. St. Thomas Aquinas spoke of the human being, not merely as a creature that seeks survival, but as one called to flourish, to actualize their potential in truth and love. Flourishing requires more than comfort. It requires direction. It demands that our lives be ordered toward something higher than ourselves. Psychologically, this confusion between stability and meaning can lead to what Frankl called the existential vacuum. It's a condition where life feels flat, not because it's difficult, but because it's void of inner necessity. You begin to ask not, how can I survive, but why am I surviving at all? The modern world rewards predictability. Be efficient, be responsible, don't rock the boat. But this quiet obedience often costs us our interior spark. The tragedy is not in losing everything, it's in never daring to want more than just the minimum. Ask yourself, are you clinging to comfort because it's meaningful or just because it's familiar? This isn't a call to throw your life into chaos. It's an invitation to examine whether your comfort is truly aligned with your values. Stability can be good, but only if it serves something greater than itself. Take a moment to reflect. Is the life you're protecting truly the life you want to live? Or is it just the one that feels safest to maintain? Let that question linger. It might just be the beginning of something real. What happens to a person who lives day after day fulfilling obligations, but never stops to ask if those obligations make sense? They may look successful from the outside, punctual, efficient, consistent. But inside, something vital is slowly fading. The soul, when neglected, doesn't scream. It withdraws. In today's world, it's dangerously easy to live a full life that is completely empty. You show up. You check things off the list. You smile in meetings, you run errands, you do your part. And yet, there's a hollowness under it all. Like living in a house where all the lights work but none of them are warm. This is the anesthetic nature of automatic living. It numbs just enough to keep you moving but not enough to keep you truly alive. And like any anesthesia, it comes at a cost. The cost is disconnection from others, from meaning, and ultimately, from yourself. Viktor Frankl believed that the human soul cannot be satisfied with mere function. We are not machines built to perform tasks. We are beings who need meaning as much as we need oxygen. And when we ignore this inner hunger, symptoms begin to emerge. Restlessness, apathy, a quiet sense of despair we can't quite name. Philosophically, this neglect of the soul is a distortion of human nature. As St. Augustine once wrote, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you." The soul is not content with productivity. It longs for purpose, for communion, for transcendence. When we ignore this need, we start to shrink, not physically but spiritually. We avoid difficult questions, we silence uncomfortable desires, we settle for noise instead of depth, and over time we become strangers to ourselves. The danger is not just in what we lose, but in what we become. A person who lives long enough without listening to their soul begins to believe they don't have one. So here's a practical question. When was the last time you were still enough to hear your inner voice? Not your thoughts, not your to-do list, but your soul. If that question feels hard to answer, don't look away. Stay with it. That discomfort is sacred. It might just be the beginning of a return. In an age of infinite stimulation, silence feels unbearable. The moment there's a pause, waiting in line, sitting alone, walking without headphones, we reach for distraction. A scroll, a tap, a click. Anything to avoid the unsettling feeling of being alone with ourselves. But have you ever stopped to wonder why boredom terrifies us so much? Boredom, at its core, is not a lack of activity. It's the confrontation with ourselves when there's nothing left to mask the emptiness. When the outer noise fades, the inner silence begins to speak. And what it says can be uncomfortable. We might hear our unprocessed grief, our unresolved regrets, our unacknowledged fears. Depth is demanding. It asks us to sit with questions that don't have quick answers. It invites us into mystery. And for many, that's more frightening than any chaos. The philosopher Blaise Pascal once wrote, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." This inability is a form of existential anxiety. We fear that if we stop moving, stop doing, we'll be forced to admit that we don't know who we are or why we do what we do. This is why modern life is so perfectly structured to avoid depth. The algorithm offers endless novelty. Work demands constant urgency. Social media rewards surface-level engagement. But all of it, when consumed without reflection, is a form of running. The tragedy is that in our attempt to avoid discomfort, we also avoid transformation. Boredom can be the gateway to insight. Silence can be the birthplace of clarity. But we must be willing to stay, to resist the urge to flee. This doesn't mean abandoning technology or rejecting modern life. It means reclaiming moments of stillness. It means treating boredom not as a problem, but as a path, a space where the soul begins to speak. So here's a challenge. The next time you're bored, don't reach for your phone. Just pause. Notice what rises. It might be uncomfortable at first, but stay with it. Because underneath the boredom, there might be something sacred waiting. Not noise, not distraction, but a deeper self that has been longing to be heard. When life begins to feel tasteless, when each day resembles the last and nothing seems to truly move us. There's a temptation to believe that something external must be missing. Maybe it's the wrong job, the wrong relationship, the wrong city. But what if the problem isn't where we are, but why we are? Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, proposed a radically different approach to human suffering. He observed that people can endure unimaginable pain so long as they understand why they must endure it. But when meaning disappears, even the smallest discomfort becomes unbearable. Frankl wrote, "Man is not destroyed by suffering. He is destroyed by suffering without meaning." This insight is crucial in our age of chronic dissatisfaction. We chase comfort, distraction, and pleasure, thinking they will bring fulfillment. But without purpose, these things only deepen our hunger. Or, in his logotherapy practice, Frankl didn't ask his patients, "How can you feel better?" He asked, "What is your life asking of you right now?" This reframing shifts the focus from self-indulgence to self-transcendence. It challenges us to step beyond the pursuit of happiness and into the pursuit of significance. And here lies the paradox. Meaning is not something we find out there. It is something we create through responsibility, love, and sacrifice. It's forged in how we respond to suffering, how we serve others, and how we choose to live even when life feels dry. Frankl often quoted Nietzsche, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." If your life feels flavorless right now, maybe the question isn't what's wrong with me, but what is worth suffering for? This is not about romanticizing pain or denying joy. It's about anchoring your existence in something deeper than mood or circumstance. Meaning isn't always euphoric. It's often quiet, demanding, and uncomfortable. But it's the only thing that gives depth to our days. So ask yourself, what would you be willing to suffer for? Not because you have to, but because it matters. That question, honestly faced, can crack open even the most numb existence. It might not bring immediate relief, but it will begin to restore your soul's appetite for life. We talk a lot about presence, but what does it really mean to be present? Not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, fully engaged in the moment, without splitting yourself between past regrets and future anxieties. Presence isn't just a nice idea, it's a discipline, a form of resistance against the autopilot state we've been conditioned to live in. St. Thomas Aquinas believed that attention is a moral act. To attend to something, fully and without distraction, is to affirm its dignity. When you pay full attention, even to something simple, you reawaken your soul to the reality that this moment matters. So here's a challenge. Choose a daily task, something ordinary, washing dishes, sweeping the floor, walking to the store, and for just 10 minutes, do it with radical attention. Don't multitask, don't rush. Observe every sensation, every movement. Notice your breathing. Watch how your mind tries to escape into fantasies, memories, plans. That resistance is your inner exile being exposed. This practice isn't about the task itself. It's about reclaiming your capacity to be where you are. In a distracted world, attention is an act of rebellion, a way of saying, I am not just a function, I am a soul. And this moment is not disposable. Philosophically, this returns us to the heart of what it means to be human. We are not meant to float above life, thinking abstractly while missing the beauty in front of us. As Aquinas emphasized, the human person is a unity of body and soul. Presence honors that unity. It heals fragmentation. Psychologically, this exercise is grounding. It slows the racing thoughts. It brings you out of the fog of repetition. It resensitizes you to your own life. And over time, it teaches your mind to rest in the now, not as a technique for peace, but as a way of living truthfully. It may feel awkward at first, boring even, but that's precisely the point. The boredom is the doorway. Stay with it. You're not trying to feel something special. You're learning to live with open eyes. Try it today. One task, full presence, no agenda. You may discover that your life was never dull, only your attention was. We live in a culture that idolizes productivity. Every hour must be optimized, every action justified by its output. Rest feels guilty, slowness feels wasteful, and worth is quietly measured in deliverables. But here's the dangerous question that lurks beneath it all. If I stop being useful, do I still matter? This is the silent wound of our time. The belief that our value lies not in who we are, but in what we produce. And so we keep moving, faster, harder, more efficiently, terrified of the stillness that might reveal how deeply we've internalized this lie. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche saw this coming. He spoke of the last man, the comfortable, efficient, but spiritually empty human being who no longer seeks greatness, only safety. A life without weight, without depth, just activity for its own sake. Psychologically, this obsession with productivity often masks a deeper insecurity. If I keep doing, I don't have to feel. If I stay busy, I won't have to confront the question, what if all this effort leads nowhere that truly matters? But meaning is not a byproduct of motion. You can be endlessly busy and still profoundly lost. In fact, busyness is one of the most effective ways to avoid meaning. It keeps you occupied enough to not notice your hunger. St. Thomas Aquinas reminds us that the highest act of the human being is contemplation, the quiet reception of truth. Not doing, but being. This doesn't mean we abandon work or discipline. It means we reorder them. Productivity is a tool, not a god. When we place productivity above all else, we reduce ourselves to instruments, useful but replaceable. And slowly, without realizing it, we become machines in human skin. So ask yourself, do you measure your days by what you accomplish or by what you become? This is not a call to laziness. It's a call to reclaim the dignity of the soul. To remember that the most important things in life, love, wisdom, integrity, are not efficient. They are slow. They require presence, attention, and time. You are not a machine. You are not here to be optimized. You are here to become fully human. Let that truth interrupt your urgency. Let it breathe new life into your days. Imagine this. Each morning, you push a boulder up a hill, and every night, it rolls back down. You wake up and do it all again, over and over. This is the punishment of Sisyphus in Greek mythology, a story that Albert Camus revisited to describe the absurdity of modern life. And yet, isn't that how many of us feel? Wake, work, repeat, push the stone, pay the bills, smile in public, suppress the inner scream. And still, deep down, something whispers, why am I doing this? Camus argued that once we become aware of the absurd, the gap between our thirst for meaning and the silence of the universe, we face a choice: despair, escape, or revolt. And his surprising answer was this: revolt. Not with violence, but with awareness. Conscious defiance. In Camus' view, Sisyphus becomes free not by escaping the cycle, but by seeing it for what it is, and choosing to continue anyway. One must imagine Sisyphus happy, he wrote, because in that lucid moment of recognition, Sisyphus claims his humanity. He is no longer a victim. He is a participant in the absurd. This has profound implications for our own lives. The repetitive nature of our days is not, in itself, the enemy. What poisons us is the unconsciousness with which we live them. When we stop asking questions, when we stop choosing, we become sleepwalkers in our own story. But awareness, no matter how painful, restores dignity. Philosophically, this aligns with Viktor Frankl's call to find meaning in suffering, not despite it. It also echoes Dostoevsky's insight. The mystery of human existence lies not in just staying alive, but in finding something to live for. Practically, this means we don't have to change everything externally to begin changing internally. The stone will still be there, the routines, the responsibilities, but how you meet them, consciously or not, changes everything. So here's a meditation. What is your stone? And are you pushing it with awareness or just habit? Don't underestimate the power of seeing. Sometimes looking directly at the absurd is what frees us from it, because in that gaze, you are no longer just surviving. You are reclaiming your right to choose how you will live, even when the hill is steep. There's a moment, subtle, almost invisible, when we stop choosing and start merely responding. We wake up, check our phones, follow the schedule, react to emails, endure conversations, scroll through distractions, day after day, not because we consciously chose any of it, but because that's just what we do. But when life is made of reactions, not decisions, we cease to be moral agents. We become passengers. And slowly, without realizing it, we hand over the authorship of our own story. To live on autopilot is not just a psychological problem, it's a moral one. Because real moral action requires awareness. It requires deliberation. It requires the ability to pause and ask, is this right? Is this worthy? Is this who I want to become? Without that pause, we lose what makes us human. The capacity to act freely. Not according to impulse, nor programming, nor social pressure, but according to conscience. St. Thomas Aquinas defined freedom not as doing whatever we want, but as the capacity to choose the good. And this choice, he insisted, is what forms our character. Each small decision bends the arc of our soul toward virtue, or away from it. When we live automatically, we abdicate that responsibility. We let habit decide, or fear, or exhaustion, and slowly, the person we could have become fades into the background. This is not about grand, heroic choices. It's about the everyday ones. Do I speak honestly in this moment, or hide behind convenience? Do I take the easy path or the one that challenges me to grow? Do I stay silent, or do I act with integrity? The tragedy of the automatic life is not that it's busy, it's that it's unexamined. And without examination, we confuse momentum with direction. We mistake activity for growth. So ask yourself, when was the last time you made a real decision, not out of routine, but out of conviction? You might discover that much of your life is a chain of inherited habits. That's okay. Awareness is the beginning. From here, you can start to choose again, not everything at once, but something today. Even one deliberate choice can begin to restore your freedom, and with it, the quiet dignity of becoming the person you were meant to be. In a world that constantly demands your attention, to choose where you place it is an act of rebellion. And yet, it's also the most ordinary and human thing you can do. Because at the heart of your life, beneath all your roles, obligations, and routines, lies this quiet, radical question: what is truly worthy of me today? Not in theory, not someday, but now. This is not a question of ambition or strategy. It's not about optimizing your time or setting smarter goals. It's a question of the soul, of dignity, of meaning. Because your attention is not just a resource, it's a declaration. It says, this matters. The philosopher Joseph Pieper once warned that the modern world is losing its ability to celebrate, to contemplate, to see. And when we stop seeing what is good, true, and beautiful, we forget what it means to live fully. We become shadows of ourselves, busy, efficient, numb. But the way back is simple, not easy, but simple. It begins with attention. Honest, quiet, patient attention. Try this. Each morning before the rush begins, sit for 1 minute and ask yourself, what is worth my attention today? Not what others expect, not what feels urgent, but what aligns with who you are trying to become. Maybe it's a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's your child's face at breakfast. Maybe it's silence. Maybe it's prayer. Maybe it's the decision to say no to one thing so you can say yes to something better. This small act of discernment cuts through the fog. It reminds you that you are not a victim of the day, you are its steward. Over time, this question can reshape your entire life. Because where your attention goes, your soul follows. And what you attend to, you become. You don't need to change everything overnight, but you can begin by choosing one thing that deserves your presence, fully, deliberately, today. So I leave you with this. What, right now, is worthy of your life? If this question moved something in you, share it in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join this community of reflection. Because here we don't chase easy answers. We seek the kind of truth that helps us live with depth, with courage, and above all, with heart.